What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Venue RX podcast. I am excited about the topic for today, as I am excited about so many of the topics we talk about, because this, in my opinion, is very much the tip of the spear, for all of us who are in the wedding and events industry, and especially for the venue owners who are members of our community and, who listen to this podcast and watch this YouTube channel. Marketing is so important. And when you think about marketing, you obviously think you have organic, you've got paid options. Of course, there's all the listing services and things like that. And so today we're really going to focus and hyper focus on organic traffic. And we're going to talk to someone today who has a lot of experience, who has been in this industry for quite a while. And I'm really excited to welcome Brian Lawrence to the show. Brian, thank you so much for coming on today.
So happy to be here. Love talking about this stuff.
Oh, well,
I'm all about educating. The business comes by itself. No promotions, just educating.
Yes, absolutely. And, you are a wedding industry educator. You've been at so many of the different conventions and conferences and, educational things. When you get in, or when you got into this industry initially, did you see yourself being an educator and see yourself helping other people? Or were you really just more focused on executing marketing initially?
Well, initially, I've been in the wedding industry my entire life. I grew up in catering. I worked at a venue. With handling food. I went from a busboy to a waiter to a bartender to a maitre d'. So I really lived the life on the inside. But then I ended up going into the wedding industry as a retailer. I opened up wedding stores, starting off with invitations and favors, and then realizing if I wanted to stay wedding focused, that wasn't enough. So I initially started by subrenting space in my store to other vendors like photography, entertainment, limousine rental. But then I realized that the rent wasn't enough. So I ended up starting all these things myself and offered it was a revolutionary concept in the day back in the 80s called a wedding center, where you provided one-stop shopping all in one place, except for the gown.
So let me ask you a question about this. And where were you located at the time? New
Jersey. Okay. I had stores in northern New Jersey, and I ended up expanding to Staten Island and also into the Philadelphia area. I was in the retail environment for 15 years.
Incredible. Okay, so the landscape has changed so much since then, but
oh yes,
I've noticed I guess maybe it's a resurgence then, because it sounded like that was kind of a foreign concept. Am I hearing that right? That it was kind of a one-stop shop where someone could get all of the things that you just mentioned, except the gown?
Yes, right. And it was all under my umbrella. I mean, they signed a contract with me. Essentially, I was a subcontractor. I mean, that wasn't obviously something that I promoted at that time, but now that it's been many years since, that's exactly what I did. I found reliable vendors it's called white labeling now in these days. Yeah. I had clients, wedding businesses that white labeled their services to me and sold it under my umbrella. And then I ended up doing so much volume that I ended up opening up separate individual businesses to take my own work. Like, for example, I bought a couple of limousines. Previously, I just sent it out to other limousine companies. I was doing a very large volume photography business. So I ended up wedding photography. So I ended up opening up a separate photography studio, hiring photographers, and did my own work. Plus I did portraiture. I wasn't a photographer, but I owned the photography business.
Wow. Brian, we're going to get into the marketing side of it, but I think that's very interesting. And I think that for a lot of people who enter our industry, they might feel like, oh, I'm not the best photographer, or I'm not the best florist, or I'm not the best, whatever it is, fill in the blank. But it sounds like you really capitalized on maybe your drive, maybe your business savvy to kind of go find those people who were good at those things and then outsource some of the work. So you were still involved in the industry and probably learned quite a bit, but you put that all together. It doesn't seem like you had that or used that as an excuse why you couldn't grow a business.
Yes. And certainly I've evolved over the years. I was very driven by revenue and volume. And certainly I cared about the outcome of having satisfied clients, but it wasn't foremost on my mind. In this chapter of my life, it's all about creating the most amazing experience for my clients. And I learned that actually in my second chapter in the wedding industry, when I decided I didn't want the retail environment anymore. And I approached a wholesale luxury invitation brand that really had a top of the line product nationally. And they created a position for me that I was with for 14 years. And I worked in a place like a large plant that had a front office and then had a factory where all of the invitations were produced. And I saw the level of quality and attention that they put to that product, all custom personalized products, and really bought into the importance of that mindset that if you do great quality, you become a magnet for business as opposed to constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's really what I brought into my web design and marketing business is to just be generous with ideas. And you can tell anybody how to do anything exactly the way they should do it. And that doesn't mean people want to do it themselves, but they know then that you know how to do it.
Do you see the difference in people who are successful versus not successful in this industry or any industry that you've helped on the marketing side? Do you see that it is for lack of knowledge that they're not successful initially, or is it just that they're not applying some of the knowledge that you might be sharing with them?
I think that it's very difficult sometimes for wedding business owners to step outside and time manage their business in a way that they allow room for growth, to think about the big picture. It's so working with wedding couples, depending on what you do, is so encompassing, and particularly at different times of the year when there are multiple weddings that are coming up soon. Like I find that after Thanksgiving, I just get bombarded with inquiries because December is like the one time of the year in many parts of the country where there are hardly any weddings that are actually taking place because of the winter. And also a lot of the wedding planning is usually deferred till after the holidays. So wedding businesses, owners are faced with a small pocket of time where they don't have it, where they have more bandwidth to think about the big picture. The challenge is that you always have to have room for the big picture, and that it should be, and you always have to think ahead. Like somebody thinks about, well, how am I going to get, like right now, the reality of the situation is that because of all of what has happened, because of COVID postponements and a pent-up demand for engagements, there is literally vendor and venue scarcity. As far as that, many of the best businesses are totally booked. And there are parts of the country with venues, and I don't know if you're experiencing with your venues, is that all of a sudden you're doing different days of the week because wedding couples don't want to postpone their lives because they can't get married on a Saturday or a Sunday. Mm-hmm. So, and that would make a wedding business be pretty complacent often that, wow, I'm so busy. I'm too busy to do anything else. I have so much work. But the wedding industry is a futures business. Every year is a rebirth. So you have to think ahead. You have to think about that. Well, your website, if you need a new website, maybe it's not going to really serve you immediately. But once people are thinking about 23 and 24, you need to have that. And it's all very, and if you don't get found on Google, these are all very subtle voids that businesses have. Because if somebody goes to a website and the website isn't that strong, they're not going to contact the business saying, well, I was at your website, I didn't like it, that's why I'm not going to contact you. And if they don't get found, if they're searching for wedding venues in Los Angeles, you just miss the opportunity. It's just not in front of you. Like a dissatisfied customer, if you do something wrong, if you're not doing something right in the day-to-day of your business, it's much more glaring and much more an ongoing reminder. this type of stuff is very subtle.
Brian, do you think that we're going to have, just from the experience that you've had in the wedding industry, do you think that, obviously there's this pent up demand that we're dealing with? Maybe even we dealt with it a little bit in the last part of last year, 2021, depending on where you were in the country. And then obviously flowing into this year and maybe even 2023. Do you still think that there's going to be a strong demand for, weddings and events past that? Or do you think that there's this kind of initial wave is going to subside and things are going to go back to, I guess, normal?
Well, I think that the booking flow will be more normal. I still think that studies tell us that there's still a lot of weddings to come in the next 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of it'll be more of a normal flow. I think that businesses will have the normal timeframes of when they could expect to get inquiries and bookings, but it's just a historic time as far as all of these things and factors cramming together to create this scarcity. And I'm not, this is something that if I subscribe to Google Alerts, which is a great tool for any business to ask Google to deliver them news bites that revolve around a particular keyword. So I always use wedding business and wedding industry. And there are articles right now from different parts of the country that talk about the same concept of venue and vendor scarcity. So it's happening all over the country.
So it sounds like really combining that with what you were just telling me before, the smart business owner would be investing time right now, even though it feels like they're super busy and times are great and the business is coming in. They should be investing time right now to sharpen and maybe reinvest some of that money that they're getting into better marketing, better website, things like that are really going to pay down the road. Am I hearing correctly?
No, absolutely, because you're operating from strength. You're not doing it. You're not thinking about it when there's a void and when you're thinking things to slow down, but they will slow down. Every year in the wedding industry is a rebirth. You can't rest on the laurels of previous success. Of course, you're bound to get some word of mouth. I mean, the beautiful part of a venue is that all of the guests get a chance to experience it on a similar level to the wedding couple, and there's a lot of word of mouth and goodwill that's generated from having that experience. So that definitely is a factor, but it's not enough to just rest on that.
Absolutely. Let's pivot now, because I'm really excited to talk to you about specifically organic marketing. Right before we came on, you said you don't focus as much on paid or at all on paid, right? And you really are focusing on organic. And I think any venue owner who's going to be hearing that right now is probably breathing a little sigh of relief and going, wow, I'm very interested. I want to know how, we do this, because I don't want to just pay Google or pay Facebook unendingly, and not really have clarity around what the return is. And even if you are able to have a return, it costs money versus being able to implement some of these organic strategies. So at what point did you really start to get interested and kind of sharpen your skills on different organic marketing strategies?
Well, it really became a necessity for me because I was doing websites and we did it. We spent all this energy in designing websites. So what's next? Keep getting more websites, of course. But for a while, I had worked with a tool that I co-developed called WebFan that had to do with Instagram engagement. But that ended up not being, it was effective, but because of things having to do with the presidential election, all the manipulation that was going on, Instagram, really clamped, and not anything other than being totally non-robotic was, had to be. And that I felt concerned about my clients' accounts if they all of a sudden stopped, not froze the account, because we found some really good strategies to build audiences, but they weren't all individual, one at a time. So I always knew about SEO. I mean, I did Google AdWords when I owned my stores right at the very beginning. And I thought it was great, but it totally became so much more complex and so much more expensive. But I actually realized that my working knowledge of SEO was great to talk about, but I had to really, I went back to school to really learn it. I got coached. I worked with an SEO expert that had classes on it. And I said, I want you to coach me separately because I really want to know it. And that's really, so I spent a year really focusing and understanding how to really do it, how to talk about it and how to do it. And now over time, with the implementation of the different strategies and having a track record of success, I'm able to now even know better what works and what doesn't work and some of the nuances. It's not a blanket strategy for every venue because there are different factors. For example, I know you wanted to talk about Google My Business. So Google My Business, all things considered, is really the best place on Google to come up. Because if you think about the first page of Google, it's really divided into 3 different areas. There are the listings that anybody can pay. If they pay enough money, they can come up on the top page. Then typically, because Google understands that a vast majority of all searches are for local vendor, some sort of local company, even if you don't type in the search term with a local indicator, Google will know where you're searching from, and they will automatically deliver local results from Google My Business. Google My Business is a separate directory than the organic search engine, but they will deliver typically the top 3 results from the Google My Business directory right on the first page of Google. And they attract the most attention. Number 1, it's like a cluster that looks different from the rest of the results. Number 2, they have reviews attached to them. You see the name of the business, where they're located, and the reviews, the number of reviews, which is an inspiration whether to click onto them or not. The challenge is that there are a lot of strategies, and I have on my website blog, I have tutorials that could help any venue owner understand how to take care of Google My Business to really help them get the most out of Google My Business for their individual venue in their individual area. The challenge is that depending on where you're located, Google My Business may not be as effective. If you're located in a small town, say you're located outside of San Francisco in a really small town, 40 miles east, 50 miles east, your client may still be San Francisco couples, but Google My Business, because you're not located physically in San Francisco, they're not that's part of, no matter how well you optimize it, if you're not physically located in San Francisco, it's going to be harder to get to the top. So for that particular venue, there are other strategies to help them rank for San Francisco. But if you're located in a city that has a good amount of traffic, then Google My Business is hands down the best way to really focus getting found because it's the most visible.
So let me just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Google My Business is a piece of Google that is
Correct.
kind of almost like this business platform that you can do. Sounds like reviews, post photos, business information.
Yes, it's a platform that you could take ownership of and have your own profile with. But at the same time, it is a directory of different businesses that are categorized depending on how you search.
Is it kind of like Yellow Pages?
Yes, it's like a version of Yellow Pages, but
digital, obviously. And
but basically, when there's so many different features in your ability to continue to build on your Google My Business platform that it's way beyond a directory listing.
So
you
what?
click on and you can build, you can actually have a Google My Business website. You can create questions and answers. There's a ton of information that to a certain extent will allow a viewer to get a tremendous amount of information that may inspire them to contact the venue without even needing to go to the website.
Wow.
That's impossible with the other Google searches.
Can you dive into that a little bit deeper and just kind of give us some high level things? If someone's hearing about this for the first time, or maybe they were aware that they had a Google My Business listing, but they haven't really done anything for it or on it. What are some kind of, if you were going to give us the top, maybe 3 or 4 things that you feel like are really effective strategies when setting up your Google My Business listing? What are those, and how would someone jump in and kind of make sure their platform or profile is optimized?
Well, one has to also realize that establishing on Google My Business is just the very first step. And it takes time. You're competing with other venues that have been listed there longer. And it's more of a marathon than a sprint to get, you crawl up to get higher and higher. Many businesses don't understand what it takes to really improve their Google My Business ranking. And that's what I'll share as the most important things. Number one, it's a matter of getting reviews. And it's not a matter of all of a sudden just sending out an email or going on a campaign for now to get as many reviews as possible. It's more a matter of consistently getting reviews. And once you get the reviews, immediately responding to them. It's a matter of not once or twice a year going to your Google My Business profile and adding photos and videos. It's adding photos or videos once a week. It's adding posts once a week, because Google will show a post on your Google My Business profile for a total of a week, and then it'll disappear from the front of the profile when somebody is looking. So it's something to do every week, and you could actually repeat posts. Like you don't have to start with new posts, but you have to it only will run for a week. So posting consistently on Google My Business is another way to improve your ranking. And not only that, but also inspiring your clients to post photos of their wedding at your venue. All things considered, when you compare you posting your own photo and somebody taking the initiative to post a photo on your platform, that even has more weight with Google, because it's showing Google that people are engaging with your profile.
Wow. Okay. So if I am running a venue and I have, a local venue, I obviously have claimed my business profile at this point. I've done I maybe added a couple of pictures. Now I would really want to implement this as part of maybe a follow-up sequence with the clients who've gotten married there, even the vendors perhaps, to reach out and say, hey, please. So is this a separate link and everything? Because I know a lot of times wedding pros ask for reviews on Wedding Wire, The Knot, like wherever else they are, right?
Yes.
Yelp, maybe.
Yes, and that's also there has to be a mindfulness about how you approach reviews, and also, if you're basing it on the fact that you be happy to get one review, like one platform for a client to review you on, you have to think about, well, if you're just getting started on Google My Business, or you've been on Google My Business, but you haven't really tended to it. If you have 15 reviews, what is it going to mean for the next, if you already have 150 reviews on Wedding Wire, what are you going to do with those next 15 clients that you want to get reviews on? Will it mean a lot for you to get 15 more on Wedding Wire to go from 150 to 165? Or will it mean something to go from 15 to 30?
Got it. Okay. So mindfulness is a great way to say it, of strategy. If you already have a presence. Okay.
Yes. Because if you think about it, and this is on any platform, on Wedding Wire, The Knot, Yelp, the preview of of a business, they don't see much. So what do they really have to go on as opposed to clicking on from one to another? Reviews are a big factor. And if they go to a platform and they see hardly any reviews, they're less like those platforms are less likely to be clicked on than others. And that's why there's always a big debate across the country about Wedding Wire and The Knot as being a viable advertising platform. Mm-hmm. And certainly overall, they are a viable advertising platform. And one has to realize is that Google and Wedding Wire are absolutely the best in the wedding industry at SEO. I mean, what they do is they're spending millions of dollars in SEO strategies, because what they want to do is when somebody is searching for a local vendor in a particular area, rather than the local resource come up on top, they want to come up on top to intercept the traffic, to bring them to their platform, to continue to have them look at advertisers as opposed to looking further down Google. So it's a really strategic thing. But if you're on those platforms and you don't have a lot of reviews, you're just less likely to be clicked. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to, and one of the things that you said is that you don't have to rely, especially at the beginning, you don't have to rely strictly on your clients to give you reviews. You could ask vendors. You could actually ask clients that just booked with you to give you a review on the experience of booking with you. So there's all different ways to get reviews as long as they're authentic. You don't want to, everything has to be authentic. That's the important thing.
So, but that's really neat what you just said. I actually have never thought of that before. Asking someone to give you a review. Hey, would you consider reviewing us about your booking process? And yes. Maybe their wedding is not going to be for another 12 months, but now they may even give you 2 reviews because they give you one at the beginning and one at the end. So that really multiplies the impact. Wow.
Right. And there's another thing also is that you know many people send out surveys, or they really want to know, well, send me a review after the wedding. What was it like to work? What did you like about the venue, et cetera? But I would also like to know what it is that inspired them to book my venue in the first place. So doing a questionnaire, because sometimes you can get even more insight in how your marketing works by doing that.
Brian, when you think about this organic marketing and these strategies that we're talking about, obviously utilizing Google My Business, is Google My Business the best option as kind of part of an overall package? Or is this really the place that let's just even talk to venues specifically, venues should be focusing on?
It's really based on where they're located. Like I said, if they're located in a rural area, it's more challenging for them to get the most out of Google My Business. They should still focus on it. And another factor for ranking on Google My Business is to make sure that all of the other places that you're listed online, including your website, is totally consistent with the way that you're listed on Google My Business. Like I've seen a lot of venues that may have called themselves something different at another time, like the all new XYZ venue when they first opened. They have it listed on an old directory. It's still out there, and it needs to be changed because it confuses Google. Google is like a robot. They want everything all the lines to be in a row. If somebody changed their phone number, changed their address, when somebody moves from one place to another, maybe not as popular in a venue situation, but you think that, well, I'm going to change. I'm going to go online and change my address with the post office, but you need to do it all over the place online. And there are ways to do that, to get your Bing and your Yahoo and your other Yellow Pages directories all consistent. That's a really important factor for ranking as well. And that's a very time-consuming strategy, but that's one strategy that I have a pretty good mastery of doing in a more efficient, affordable way.
So do you think that, let's talk to the brand new venue owners here. Someone's listening to this podcast and maybe they haven't even launched their venue yet. And they're considering now all the different options they have. Yelp, of course, you sign up for a Yelp profile and they'll be calling you within, a couple hours, offering you $300 in free credits or something, right?
Yeah. And the other thing that one needs to know about Yelp is that it's a very aggressive platform. they don't post all the reviews. They have a sort of a selection process. If you list on Yelp, they can, if you don't pay enough, sometimes you get, they list competitors. It's a confusing platform, but they are very good at what they do, and they do have very good online visibility. They're like Wedding Wire and the Nut. They do the old intercept to bring them off the Google, to bring them onto Yelp. But to answer your question about what is a good thought process for a venue, it really first starts with the website. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that, well, I can improve my SEO, and even if my website isn't strong, as long as I get more traffic to the site, that's going to help. And the answer is yes, it's going to help. But if you have a strong website, not only does it create a better user experience from all of the different channels, like if you are paying for advertising or marketing, and they're driving that client to your site, if your site isn't that strong, there's less of a chance that they're going to convert. And they may have done their job by driving the traffic, but you have to do your job to create a welcoming environment for them to do so. But also, a good website also helps SEO, because Google looks at how long someone stays on the site, how many pages they go to. There is what's called a bounce rate. If somebody goes to a site and spends 5 seconds on it and says yuck, or it's overwhelming, confusing, and they leave, that's considered a bounce, and that could affect your search engine ranking, because Google sees that they've ranked you high enough to get found, but people aren't staying on the site. Then that means you're not a viable source for that particular search term. So it's really important to think about SEO from a user experience on your website as well. But the website is really the foundation of where you start. It's how people judge you. Like if you're new in business, if you're just, I see a lot of venues that sometimes just have a Facebook page. It's again a very difficult situation, because the pain process, people are looking at, well, I just spent all this money to invest in a venue. I went over budget, and the pain of having to invest another $5,000 to $10,000 in a website sometimes seems really hard at that stage. But what they don't realize is how much business they're losing by not doing it. And with venues, we're dealing with purchases of thousands of dollars. So if you're losing out on those opportunities, I mean, you really don't have to. There's not much business you really need to do in order to recover that investment. But it's really, really important. If you want to be competitive with other venues that have been in business a longer time than you, you really have to have that website that proves that.
A question about that really fast. So there are all sorts of different options as far as website builders, right? There's of course WordPress, but then there's Squarespace and Weebly and Wix and all the different things like that. GoDaddy, I think, even has their own builder. I have seen new venues that go out and they have heard that WordPress sites rank higher from an SEO perspective, or they can rank higher. And so they'll go create a WordPress site, but they don't really do a great job because WordPress has a level of complexity that maybe some of the others don't. And so the WordPress website is not that great, versus them maybe using a template that's on Squarespace or Weebly or Wix. Do you have any advice as far as, should they just kind of have this placeholder website that maybe feels a little templatey and it doesn't feel as custom, but it is aesthetically pleasing? It seems clear and well laid out, even if it's just 1 or 2 pages. Is that better, or is it better to kind of choose something that might be more complex, maybe not as aesthetically pleasing, but it is going to be on WordPress and might rank higher?
If somebody is really going to not be willing to invest in a professional website, I can totally understand the benefit of them going to a platform that is easy for them to create. And it also, one of the things that is really important is the photographs. And a lot of new venues, think about, oh my God, I'm not going to have a wedding for another 7 months, and I'm going to have to wait for that, and I'm going to maybe take pictures of the grounds or whatever. And no, that's not the answer. If you don't have a wedding for a number of months, it's worth doing a styled shoot. It's worth simulating the wedding experience so that people could have photos that they could relate to. And I do think that there is a certain allure for wedding couples to book at a venue that they haven't heard about before, as long as it looks reputable, as long as it really is, as long as the words are chosen in a way that they feel that their needs will be heard. You don't want that website to radiate lack of experience. And a lot of times there are certain elements. I know that we don't have the time to really go to do a deep dive, but there are definitely elements that I think that every wedding venue website should include to try to really create a picture and a story.
It's amazing, because as I'm hearing you talk about this and kind of explain and walk through some of the process of marketing, whether it's organic or paid, it really is layers. It doesn't seem like there's a magic bullet. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, and I certainly also, as far as because I know that you really wanted to know about the SEO part, and I don't want to run out of time to not address that. But one of the best strategies, and I just want to make sure that I share this with the audience, is having to do with blogging. For that, so we talk about the scenario where, yes, Google My Business for businesses that are located in areas that have a good that are in a city where they can get a good amount of traffic, is one thing. But if they're not located, it's going to be very difficult to rank for that term on Google My Business, and it's going to be difficult for them to rank for search terms with regular SEO strategies, especially for a new venue. The best strategy.
Really quick about that though. Google My Business, let's say that your reviews or the information that you put out on your Google My Business listing, let's take your San Francisco example, right? You're, let's say 40 miles east, 50 miles east. So you're a little bit outside San Francisco, but you really serve a San Francisco couple, because it's maybe where someone is going to go to get a little bit more of a rural feel. But you really serve a San Francisco crowd. Can you put information in your bio or business details, or even the reviews that people give to you? Could you put that, like, couples from San Francisco love us? Like, could you try to pitch your Google My Business profile to say, we really
yes, you can. But it's just a matter of, there's a certain ranking factor that being physically located, like, to a certain extent, as crazy as it might seem, you might have a better chance of listing in San Francisco, of not listing the address and just saying serving San Francisco. If you really are serving right out of the San Francisco area, but it's just incongruous to do that because how could you have a venue website without having a venue address?
Yeah.
But the answer is yes, you can do a lot on your Google My Business profile to radiate San Francisco, and you could have service areas, and that's why you can physically rank. I'm just saying that I always shoot for the top. I'm saying that it's hard to rank on the top of Google My Business if you're not located in San Francisco. But from the organic results, what I was starting to say is that if you do what I call optimized blog posts, so everybody knows what a blog is that typically, from a venue perspective, most of the times they'll do a blog on real weddings, where they'll feature different weddings, maybe talk about the vendors, talk about some of the nuances where they had a beautiful ice carving or a beautiful arrangement or a special ceremony setup, whatever it is. Those are really nice inspiration for a couple to look at beyond the pages of a website. Then there are educational blog posts that talk about, well, here's the best way to figure out your timeline, or 10 wedding trends that are great for an outdoor wedding. Those are where those are not really effective blog posts for a couple to go onto a website to look at the venue and then expect them to look at these other educational. People are only going to spend a certain amount of time. But there are educational blog posts that you could do that could help bring people to the site. So for example, if you do like a blog post about how to have your wedding in San Francisco, how to select a wedding venue in San Francisco, and do like an ongoing, like a really long blog post that covers so many different details about the wedding planning. And it's not just doing it one time, it's doing the blog post and then every month going back and adding more and more to that blog post, because it makes Google come back, and Google loves fresh content. And the more content that you're adding, the more authority it could have with Google. And over time, you can see the ranking of that blog post. And sometimes you can get more traffic from that blog post than you can of people that are actually getting married in the San Francisco area than some of your other internal pages. Usually you'll always get the most traffic on your homepage, but it's not just getting traffic to your website. It's not just about getting traffic to your homepage. Every page is eligible to rank on Google. And that's why you shouldn't try to rank every page on your website for the same keyword term. You have to try to vary it. And especially if you're going for different areas that you're targeting. If you're located between two major cities, I have a client, a venue in Colorado that's located in between, say, Denver and Boulder. And so we're doing optimized blog posts to try to help them because they're not physically located in either one. So Google My Business isn't going to serve them as well. Mm-hmm. So we have to do the optimized blog posts to try to get them to rank for those areas. And that's better than any individual regular page.
A question about that. So you mentioned updates to the blog post. Should we, like if I was going to implement this right now, I go to my, website, I go to my blog editor, I write my blog. Let's say it's about how to get married in San Francisco or how to, venue selection, and things to keep in mind. And let's say I created it and it's 2 or 3 paragraphs long, right? And has some of the keywords. Are you telling me that I should go back to that one next month and add a 4th paragraph, and then the next month a 5th paragraph to that same blog post?
Yes.
Or create a separate blog post?
No, one blog post. Keep adding to it.
Huh. Okay.
But you need to start with a more substantial amount of content to begin with to give it authority. So a minimum of like 1,000 words, and then you could add incrementally a few hundred words a month. Or maybe it could be something like, well, here are some great sites to take some great photo opportunities beyond the venue to look for in San Francisco. And you just keep adding individual ones. Or great places for your guests to tour while they're in San Francisco. So you make it a total San Francisco page having to do with the wedding process. Here are some great makeup artists. Whatever it is, you just keep adding and being this resource guide for. I did something like this for a DJ in Connecticut, where I did something for him, unique wedding venues in Connecticut, where he gave me like 40 of his favorite venues, and we started with 10 venues. We kept adding like a venue a month, and now he ranks on top of Google for the search of unique wedding venues in Connecticut.
Wow. Got it. That's incredible. Okay. So his name is then coming up across, when there's a search, even related to the venue.
And it's not competitive with other DJs. He's coming up individually. They're reading the article. He starts off mentioning, well, I'm a DJ in Connecticut, and I thought I'd share this directory of you of all these different beautiful venues. Huh.
Wow. That is really powerful. I think that's something that not a lot of people know. So that's incredible.
No, my pleasure. That's why, I wanted to share things that could really be of value, like I said.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. Well, hey, Brian, we are running out of time here, but I want to give the audience the opportunity to connect with you and even, learn more about what you do, maybe how they can even work with you and learn more about some of these incredible tips that you've been sharing with us. If someone does want to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that, or on what platform would you like them to reach out?
Really go to my website. I have a lot of information on my website, I have a lot of free information that can help them on my blog. So it's brianlawrence.com, BrianLawrence.com. And also what I do when somebody wants to talk to me, I will schedule a half an hour meeting, and I would have done a study on their website if they have one beforehand, and I'll run different numbers on how their SEO is doing. I'll identify weaknesses and strengths. So no matter if they do business with me or not, they're gonna benefit from the talk. And
Wow.
I'm patient. I'm patient. I know that eventually some of these people, even if they're not ready, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's a huge value add. I'm going to have to get off this podcast and schedule a call with you myself. Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I've learned so much personally. I know the audience as well. And if you're on YouTube listening to this, watching this, or if you're on any of the podcast platforms, definitely have to check out Brian Lawrence's website. And we'll put links to that in the description and all of the information in the podcast as well, so you guys can go navigate to that. But Brian, thanks for coming on today.
It's my pleasure. Enjoyed it.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.